Hello and welcome back to this Unity tutorial. Today I will show you something that annoyed me a lot when I started with game development. So my biggest problem in 2D game development was that my sprites just don't appear in the scene when I drag them in. So in this scene you see some creatures in front of a background. The creatures are sometimes stacked over each other and some creatures you don't even see. Like this one. So if we change the view in the scene view from 2D to 3D, we see every sprite is on top of each other. So the first thing you may try is to drag the background on the Z axis. After this, we can now see all creatures, but some creatures are still stacked on each other. So now you can continue dragging all creatures on the Z axis till everything is fine. But as you can see, it takes some time to do this, and it's pretty annoying to do it with every creature. And after all, everything looks pretty messy. So let's put everything back to 0 on the Z axis. So let's do it right. Maybe you noticed the sorting layer on the right side. Here you have one default layer. I will now add some layers. I prefer to start with the background and then add another layer for the foreground. Now we have to bring these layers into the right order. You have to understand that Unity renders the images in these orders. So the background will be the first thing we have to render. Then I will keep the default layer, and after that I want the foreground to be rendered. So now I can add these layer groups to my sprites. I will give all creatures the layer foreground because I want them in the foreground. So now I can see all creatures because they are rendered after the background. But the creatures are still not rendered correctly among each other. So to fix this, we have the parameter order in layer. The higher the number, the later they get rendered. Be sure to have some space between the numbers, because maybe you want to add something later. So after I added the layers and the order, I think the scene looks more realistic. And now the good part about the layers. When I add a new sprite to the scene, I can give this sprite just the layer foreground and an order number. The sprite will appear on top of every other sprite. So when we go back to our 3D scene view, we see the sprites are still on top of each other, but they are rendered correctly. So even if I go to the other side of my scene, I see the rendering is still correct. So in a real game project, you may have more than 2 layers. I prefer to have one for the background, one for the foreground, and one for the player, and one for my UI. So keep in mind that you have different layers and different orders in layers, and always have some space between these numbers in the layer. Did you notice what I forgot to add to the background, and why is it working anyways? Tell us in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, show us. If you don't, tell somebody you don't like. You may subscribe for more.